roof being closed, completely different than roof being open. Wasn't really ready for it. My worst sinkers with the roof open around 16, best sinkers around 22. Today, worst sinkers were 13, best sinkers were 15. So I had to completely change my mechanics to kind of get the movement I wanted. Yeah, this is just a different one. Obviously, indoors is indoors, but this is it's different. Lowering my arm slot creates more movement, less command. But yeah, I mean, when you're expecting 18 horizontal movement, you're getting 13. It's not really that good.
All right. Blair and Barker, Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet. Ben Ennis in for Jeff Blair for the first 3 days of this week. That was Chris Bassitt, as he was perhaps unaware that the retractable roof, it retracts and then closes on occasion when there's impending weather. It was closed yesterday, much to his dismay, as for the second time this season gives up 7 earned runs. Guts through 4 innings.
That's what
Kevin.
that's called.
Yeah, he gutted through it. He didn't want out of that baseball game. Second time this season he's given up, as I mentioned, 7 earned runs in a start. It's notable. The only other time it happened was at home with the roof closed, albeit against a different team than the A's. It was the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Back in April. He's made some starts with the roof closed this season.
Yeah.
The first 2 months of the season, all his home starts were with the roof closed.
Yeah, so you're saying everything he just said there is BS? That's what you're trying to say?
I'm just saying, it's a little curious.
Look, if you stick around long enough, you're going to hear some things you're walking away from going, what in the heck did I just listen to? Like, I don't even know how to respond to that. It's, again, this dude's made 180 career starts in the big boy league. Like, the first time you ever seen a roof close, like you walk out there and you go, man, I never seen that before. What's that look like? Wow, well, I don't know what my sinker and cutter's going to be doing today. I have no idea. Like, it's just, every once in a while, you just got to stop doing that and just say, you know what, I had a bad first inning. I just couldn't figure it out. The cutter and the sinker didn't go where I wanted it to go. Like, and all the plethora of other stuff that I was trying to work through just wasn't working. Like, instead of saying 18 inches and 13 inches, really? Okay.
He's very specific.
Yeah, look, everybody deals with weather. Like, that's just part of it, right? I mean, you try and control it as much as you can because of that beautiful, nice stadium that they got to go work in.
Yeah.
But man alive, like, again, sometimes I guess when that roof's open, I've talked to a bunch of those players about the wind does circle around in there. I'm assuming that's what he's talking about when he's trying to throw the sinker and the cutter and, the wind takes over. It's got like that much time to take over of what the ball's trying to do and where it's trying to end up and how much it's meant to break. And what about, he sort of mentioned it at the end about the mechanics. And if I get on the side of the baseball, I get on top of the baseball. I get on top of the baseball, the ball goes where I want it to go. If I consistently get on the side of the baseball, means the elbow's below the baseball. Ball going to go all over the place. Most of the time, that means it's going to end up down the middle, and it ain't going to have the little extra gear to it, which the velocity is going to be very erratic. And then you're going to start overthrowing it because you turn around and look at the same velocity thing that everybody else does. Again, it just gets back to that. Every once in a while, boy, you get a 35-year-old who's a little cranky, and somebody sticks a microphone in his face.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty tough for this
to
Blue
take
Jays
that serious.
Team. Well, to do that, and also for this Blue Jays team to come back from a 6-run deficit in the first inning. It's just not happening with the lack of offensive weapons currently in this lineup.
They got beat 1-0 against the Oakland A's, and
they got 2 hits in that game.
When it was 6-0 in the first inning, you were thinking the same thing I was thinking.
Of course, but do we give Chris Bassitt any credit for gutting through it? There were multiple opportunities. Ryan Yarbrough was warming in the first inning. Ryan Yarbrough eventually getting into the game, but not until Chris Bassitt did throw 86 pitches and got through 4 innings. He's a guy that threw 200 innings a year ago.
I'm in the camp that it was a 41-pitch inning. You got somewhere around 100 pitches to throw.
Yeah.
Gutting, they get paid to play once every 5 days. Like, I don't want to be too hard on him here. I guess it takes a lot of guts to come out and say your sinker and your cutter are breaking 18-13 and 21-16. Because of the roof's closed. Yeah. Again, if you want to give him credit for going 4 innings, go ahead. I'm not going to. I think he should have made quicker adjustments. I think, the Oakland A's is not the hardest team to pitch to. this time of the year, like you've been around enough to 180 starts is a little tough to sort of hear, that the controlling of the weather because the roof's closed.
Well, it's almost
didn't allow
blaming
my sinker
somebody.
Absolutely is. Again, it just gets back to that. A 9-to-5 worker's not going to buy into roof's closed. It's beautiful in there. Weather is perfect. Don't even have to wear sleeves. Like, it's just so mild and nice, and you can sit and enjoy it, and you're not sweating like crazy. And, there's a little rain outside, so it's just the weather's tremendous because you can.
I don't know. It seems more that, he's lost the art, and it's more science for him when he's on the mound. I mean, that seemed like a situation. Again, he's pitched well with the roof closed. He's pitched poorly with the roof closed. And it's not like it was a last second. I guess perhaps he thought the roof would be open. He looked at the forecast and didn't see that there was a definite possibility of the roof being closed.
Enough that you're going to have the roof closed.
Okay. Chris Bassitt has been a success story, I think, for the Blue Jays. Since he's been a Blue Jay, he's been,
at his age, what he's been doing, the length. Yeah, absolutely.
And if you go down the list of positives on Ross Atkins' resume.
Homer.
Yeah, that was a good one.
The three top guys in that rotation, they've all almost hit home runs off.
Nobody's blaming Chris Bassitt for where the Blue Jays find themselves in the standing
Absolutely not.
Right now. In fact, I was one of the many that thought, hey, maybe you explore trading Chris Bassitt because his value might be pretty high considering.
Never been greater, probably.
He's got a contract for next season. Maybe he helps somebody get into the postseason.
Until you say you're running it back next year, and then that all went away.
Sure. But either way, he doesn't need to do this. That's what's a little confusing about it.
Yeah, look, I haven't talked to anybody that's around that to ask if you've had conversations. I think they think exactly the way I think. It's silly. You deal with conditions all the time. Like, conditions in that closed roof dome had never been better. Like, basically you're telling us that in a big-time game, you're going to need all the conditions the exact right to you to be the exact right person and get the key outs that you need to get. So, I mean, yeah, look, that's what he wanted to try and sell. He did the best he could do, only the way Chris could do it.
Yeah.
I ain't really buying it, but again, he's I get back to that. You could understand that being a kid guy who's trying to find Yariel Rodriguez. I give you that. I mean, he's a little bit of a field guy too, right? The two breaking balls, the natural cut. The two breaking balls not working because they closed the roof. Never done that before. I'm not saying he hasn't, but I'm saying he would have an excuse to do with 180 starts at the big league level, who's dealt with absolutely everything. I mean, he went from one of the worst stadiums in the history of the sport to this thing. Like, it's just, again, like I would have loved to just see one of the leaders, the main leaders of the team, just come out and said, you know what, dude, I had the worst inning I've had in a very long time, and I tried to work through it. I did the best I can. I'll come back in 5 days and dominate whoever I'm pitching against.
Yeah, I mean, is there something to be said for that? I mean, there's Yariel Rodriguez, who's trying to establish himself as a starter in the Major Leagues of Baseball. You got the guy tonight in Bowden Francis, who's trying to be a part of this rotation going forward. You got some young relievers as well who are looking to this guy.
Not many.
Not
many. You got two lefties down there, and then there's everybody else. And everybody else is old enough to have been around long enough, and you need about 4 other guys who have been around a very long time if you don't include Jordan Romano. If you do include Jordan Romano, it's 3 guys you need. So I get your point. I get what you're trying to sell here. This late in the season, the dudes know where they're at. They know what the understanding of how they're trying to get it done and what they need to do to get it done. He said it right at the end there where the mechanical thing he's getting under the baseball. The ball wasn't going where he wanted it to go, and he's a field guy, right? That's a lane. He's a lane guy. You got to start that thing in a certain lane for it to end up where he wants it to end up. If it doesn't, I just say that instead of the roof and the numbers.
How about
it's good for him to go find the numbers.
Well, I mean,
we actually memorize them.
We rip guys when they don't say enough, right? When they're not honest enough.
I'm not really ripping him. I just don't understand.
I'm saying, should we give him some credit for being honest?
You can.
If that's truly the way he felt, and honest to goodness thought that the roof being closed as a surprise to him, and perhaps different than it being closed when he can prepare for it being closed. That's the other part. He made an allusion to as if, I wasn't ready for it to be closed. Not exactly sure what that means. I guess maybe they would have changed the arm angle at the outset. How about, after you give up the first 2 runs in that inning, maybe at that point before it snowballs to 6?
I will say if you're doing something, you're throwing it exactly the way you've thrown it for 180 starts, and it's not doing what you expect it to be doing, then you're a little confused, right? You could tell he was a little confused. He was rocking around the mound. He couldn't really figure out why this, that, and the other. I just think he's a Khakis dream when it comes to all those numbers and the dropping and the horizontal and the vertical, and I don't care. We're making good pitches.
Tell him those numbers?
Well, yeah. I mean, the 18 inches to 13, that's all Khaki. Like, that's all you figure.
You can't find that on the tablet?
I'm sure you can turn around and look at it and memorize it. I'm sure that's what he was talking about is he would throw it, turn around and look at it and go, man. Because Kevin Gossman's been on our show many times saying that about the split finger and the velocity and that scoreboard will tell you exactly mechanically what you're doing right, what you're not doing right, because when you've made 180 career starts, like you should know to the right there around that sort of number, if I'm throwing it here and I'm doing this and the leg's right and I finish it and I get it in the right lane and that number's right, I turn around and it says 18-inch vertical, we're going to have a good day. But if that thing's 13 inches, boy, then it starts churning.
Yeah.
And then you just sort of go off the tracks and you have a first inning like he did. Again, that's to each his own. You can say what you want. How dare I say anything bad about Chris, but go for it, buddy, if that's what you want to say.
He lasted 4 innings, which was not something I anticipated the way that game started. I mentioned it was not a great offensive weekend for the Toronto Blue Jays against the Oakland A's. So, and Vladdy's 22-game hitting streak coming to an end. Finally, in yesterday's game, he goes 0 for 4. Matchup against Mason Miller on Saturday.
Yeah, it's called overmatched. I mean, that's sort of how, I've been overmatched before, and then the next day I was overcompensating for some things to thinking that something wasn't working because of velocity. Now, the guy he faced the next day was in a hard throw because he was left-handed and, it was 92, 93. But, it sort of gets you in that. I got to get it geared up. I can't let it travel the extra half an inch because he just threw 4 fastballs. Mason basically said to the best, hottest hitter, or one of them, that guy in New York's pretty hot too, but one of the hottest hitters in baseball, here it is, big fella. I don't think you can hit it. And, again, that's sort of, I think, where the Blue Jays are at. It just hammered home this ain't rocket science of what they need and how they should be competing against some of the worst teams in baseball. Now, I know Oakland's had a better July and their pitching staff's a little bit better. I mean, they faced a lefty that was throwing like 92 miles an hour. Like I wrote that down. What are they? They're like 27th in slug, 29th in average against lefties. I mean, there's no excuse for it. It needs to get better. You go out and get dudes who know how to get it done. And I think that just sort of hammered home the last couple of games that's exactly what they need to do in the offseason. Sooner than later. Let's agree on that.
Oh, yeah. This offseason, they're going to overhaul the offense. They have no choice.
You think so?
I think it's absolutely necessary considering what they're trotting out there right now. No offense to some of the players that are put in positions up in a lineup that they probably shouldn't belong.
They need 3 grown men in their lineup. Grown men cost a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they don't have enough right now, clearly.
No.
But they're trying to look at who can potentially impact this lineup either, because of injuries or somebody. They're trying to get a sense of what their young players are, obviously, right now, right? And I think we're getting a longer track record with some of them. Obviously, Luis De Los Santos was sent down after the game yesterday, picking up his first major league hit. Good for him.
Yeah.
After a long
first RBI.
Yeah, a long road in the minor leagues. Sent down. We expect a corresponding move to be announced at some point. Maybe it's Will Wagner playing a little corner infield with Buffalo.
That's who it has to be.
Yeah.
I mean, who else do you need to see?
Well, I mean, Jonathan Clase is also down there in Buffalo. He's leading off for the Bisons.
Right?
Sure. I mean, okay, so De Los Santos is sent down. Davis Schneider is like going through it in a big-time way. Since the start of July, he's hitting 180 with a 479 OPS. He has no home runs. That's the big deal. I mean, this is a guy that, you don't expect to hit 300 for you, but when he's at his best, he's hitting in the low 200s, but he's taking some walks, and when pitchers were making mistakes, he was hitting it over the fence, and that's just not happening. 31 strikeouts, 9 walks since the start of July.
Yeah.
It's incredible what he's been able to accomplish considering his pedigree. But if there was another guy that I think I'd be willing to rotate through to get a look at somebody else, although Class A has a little bit of major league seasoning as well. Like we've seen him at the major leagues for the Mariners. I'd I'd be willing to see both Wagner and Class A. And then I guess by the time the Reds come into town, Joey Votto as well. I would, I think it's time to see some of the young guys that they acquired at the deadline, and it may start as early as tonight as they start a series against the Angels with Wagner.
Yeah, I think it's two guys. It's Class A and Wagner, right? And then there's everybody else, and you know the
Loperfido.
I mean, he's got 32 bats with 16 punches. He's hitting 125 as a J. Now, look, I have talked to some people that say they're trying to give him certain, cues to try and adjust and do little tweaks at the plate to just try and make it a little bit more fluid and get to a better finish, right? With the way he strides, he cuts himself off, right? Barrels in and out of the zone quick. Hard to do in 2024 with the way they throw breaking balls and fastball counts and the tunneling of that pitch and as hard as they throw velocity. So, look, that might scream 32 at-bats with 16 punches. And you got, again, I get back to that John thing when John Schneider was on our show, I think it's a couple of weeks ago, and I asked how you graded and does performance matter? He said, absolutely. That is the first thing we look at. Well, if you look at Loperfido, there's a lot of non-competitive at-bats in there. Why? Why is it went from, he was hitting fastballs to the moon as a Astro. All of a sudden he come over here and he ain't. That's the part of it. I just, again, it gets back to you got a lot of voices in that room, right? And I'm sure you got a lot of people that are trying to pick and want to be the person that fixes Loperfido because they can't go out and get an entire team in the offseason. So they need to hit a homer off of one of these guys like Loperfido, Barger. I think Horowitz and Clement, I would think's on their team already.
Yeah.
Just with what they do. One's left-handed. He doesn't have an obvious hole. The other guy is a bat-the-ball guy who can play shortstop because of who your shortstop is and the injuries he's going through. So, yeah, again, I just get back to that. If opening day next year, if you have Springer, Varsho, Kirk, Horowitz, Bo, and Vladdy in the lineup with an older Springer, a Varsho who sometimes looks like me offensively, Kirk who has some conditioning issues, Horowitz now the expectations are going to be off the charts if he's a starter, right? There's none coming up here. There is going to be a lot if you're the opening day second baseman. And Bo and Vladdy, we're going to still say that they're supposed to carry Canada. So this is what I said, right? You're going to have to hit a home run. It can't be all of these guys. It can't be Loperfido, Barger, and whoever else on the team trying to fill in the other three spots in the lineup. Just can't be that way. That's what I said. Like, you can have a couple of them or one of them dudes coming off the bench, right? A guy that's not going to be sort of, exposed because he can come up and look one pitch, look one location. You don't get it. Like, you're not going to play every single day. You can sort of refine what you're trying to do mechanically and mentally. This is what I said. There's some heavy lifting, boy. You got to get a closer. You got to get three grown humans in that lineup. Like, there is just, this is sort of hammered home exactly against Oakland.
Yeah.
You can't come on as a front office in spring training and go, we believe.
Yeah.
And bring in like the IKFs and the Kiermaiers of the world and the 39-year-old Justin Turner who's coming off a career year at 38. Like, you can't do that. So they got to be real refined on how they look at these players and how they evaluate them and how quickly they can make up their mind whether they can help a team get off to a good start, because it is key, boy.
Yeah.
It is key they get off to a good start.
Yeah, and you got to beat the teams you're supposed to beat, which for this team this year is nobody. But the Blue Jays dropping to 18 and 13 against teams below 500. We mentioned the young players that are down in Buffalo, and maybe one of them is going to be in Anaheim tonight in Will Wagner. Jake Bloss made his Blue Jays organizational debut. Only threw 50 pitches, and it starts at the major league level. He was throwing over 80, but they kept him to only 50. I guess like they had the extended break there. It's a lot, you change teams for the first time in your professional career. He went down to Dunedin, got onboarded, whatever. He went 2 2/3, couple of strikeouts, 3 hits, and a walk, as mentioned, in 50 pitches. Yeah, did not allow an earned run. Maybe gets another start, maybe 2. What do you see? What's the best course of action with a guy who is supposed to be the coup, right? Like, this is the guy. Everything you did at the deadline, okay, maybe there's pieces that you package together and do some of your work this offseason with, and maybe there's some value with a Loperfido or a Class A, but I don't think anybody's really even an everyday player. At best, maybe you're looking at fourth outfielder types. Jake Bloss is supposed to be a guy that as early as next season maybe he doesn't start in your rotation, but you could see him being a part of the rotation. Is it important for the Blue Jays to see him for them at the major league level? He started 3 times for the Astros this year to pretty poor results, but do the Blue Jays need to integrate him into their major league rotation? And does that mean a 6-man rotation?
Not for me. I mean, again, that 6-man rotation, you have to go to the 3 big boys and ask them if they're okay with that, skipping days, and it'd be an extra day for all 3 of them guys. Are they used to it? Do they want to do that? That'd be the first thing you'd have to ask. Look, you got to remember, too, the Astros gave them 3 dudes up. They're trying to win a World Series, right? So, 2 positional players lumped in there as Loperfido. If Loperfido was that good, the Astros thought he was that good.
Yeah.
They would have kept him, right? Like, so you got to remember that, too. And Bloss is, could be one of those just back into just a guy. Like, you got to find that out real quick, right? And, again, not many number 5 guys are, going to be world beaters and give you 6, a quality start every time out there. So, look, the 50, I wouldn't look at the amount of pitches he's throwing. I'd just look at how efficient it is, right? How easy does it look? Does it look like he's having to labor through it at the minor league level? Can he throw strike one being unpredictable? Like, there's things you look at other than the pitch count, how many batters he's faced. Like, I wouldn't look too much into that. You got to, with your evaluations, you got to be real quick, right? He's a part of the future, I would expect. Just maybe not to begin the season next year. You don't have to be in that big of a hurry to jump him up here and find out what he's got. So there's layers to that question. I think you just asked me, and I'm sure they'll go about it the right way. Again, I just don't think there's any hurry. I know what people and scouts around have said. I just get back to that. All the injuries that the Astros have had, they weren't real sad about getting rid of him. Like, I know they needed what they needed, which is a lefty who can throw, close to 3 digits at some times. And
he's been good. Yusei Kikuchi's been really good.
They've adjusted. Don't throw as many breaking balls. You're going to go deeper. It's going to be easier to get working through batters. Like, again, I wouldn't be surprised to get what they need to lump some trades in there, right? Yeah. Like, you do what you have to do to get off to a good start. You may not be able to go out and buy it all, right? If you need to get you a good catcher who can either start or back up Kirk, then you may have to trade for it. And maybe this pitcher, maybe Loperfido, maybe, the word is Clase, they like him because he's an athlete. They don't have a ton of athletic
79 stolen bases.
Like, they don't have that. You can't teach that. Right, I can teach you how to. I've always said that I can teach you how to hit a cutoff guy or catch a ground ball, but I can't teach you how to be an athlete. If you're an athlete first, sort of, you can refine that if you get around the right coach. Coach.
Yeah.
Okay. So
there's going to be an evaluation of the manager, the general manager, the president at the end of the season.
Okay.
But we don't talk enough about the
I don't know how you evaluate a manager at the end of the season with what he's been working with. I mean, you lost your 8th and 9th inning guy out of the pen and never fixed it. And it was like end of May. And you didn't do anything about it. So how am I grading the manager? Like, you grade the manager when you give him dudes. And he's writing out a lineup who can compete against some of the best pitching in baseball. Then you do that. Then you give him a 9th inning guy and an 8th inning guy. Yeah. Then you're all for grading him. You don't like what he's doing, get rid of him. But I don't know how you grade him now.
Okay, so then can we grade, now the offensive coordinator in Don Mattingly and and the rest of the minions that I guess that's the way the reporting structure works, is the offensive coordinators at the head of the snake when it comes to scoring runs, which Blue Jays have done very little of this season. I mean, is it fair to judge those guys off this season? I mean, this is not the representative lineup, obviously, that they expected to be fielding. But when they had guys here, they weren't scoring runs.
And bottom feeders.
Also, to your point, like, hey, Joey Loperfido wasn't Aaron Judge in Houston. It's better than what he's shown in brief time here.
Fastball. I know he's hitting well over 300 against the fastball. I mean, he wasn't playing a ton because of who he's playing for, but he was hitting the fastball better. He's had a lot of non-competitive bats with the Blue Jays. Why is that? I mean, he's too young to have, non-competitive at-bats against velocity, right? I mean, again, it gets back to that. You look at his numbers, you look at just sort of his approach with his lower half, you can see why he don't like you breaking ball. But, boy, he should smother heaters just because of his age. And he's got enough bat speed. I mean, he's got leverage because he's 6'3". If you just use your lower half in the right way and just don't look. It gets back to that thing right there. We've been saying this forever on this show. There's a lot of people have a lot of different ways of saying a lot of different things. And some kid just showing up here, boy, where could that end up? So, hopefully, because he's got some athleticism. Like he can he runs good routes. He gets good jumps. He can hit the cutoff guy. He can go first to home. It's just getting on first.
Yeah.
And it's tapping into the power. Like I've seen his batting practice. He's got power. He can hit a homer to center, which is not the easiest thing to do. Like you gotta get after one, and it's easy pop. It's just consistently being able to get to right quadrants with the barrel to be able to do that. And that's up to obviously 15 hitting coaches. So yeah, like I'm in the camp of maybe that's the a little bit of the problem. It's just too many. Like there's you get one you love, get one you love.
Yeah. Have
him sort of be the boss. The big dog of the herd, and go from there. And then you also have to get better talent.
Getting the dudes it feels like the priority number one there. Speaking of the dudes, before we take the break, Aaron Judge only intentionally walked once over the weekend.
That's dumb.
To the Rangers. he went 6 for 10 with a double and a home run. He did have 2 other non-intentional walks. There's 43 games to go for the Yankees.
He's hitting 50. That's a given.
Yeah, so Aaron Judge has 13 intentional walks, 43 games to go, because it feels like now people are catching on that's the play. Maybe not in the second inning with nobody on, 2 out.
Absolutely, you do that. You do that whenever if you have a plan going in to not let
down.
He's
4-1.
the right-handed Barry Bonds now in 2024. I mean, Austin Wells. The New York Yankees have Austin Wells protecting.
Okay, so how many does he finish with? Paul Goldschmidt has he's the active leader. He had 29 intentional walks in 2015. Aaron Judge has 13 this season. Again, there's 43 games to go. How many does he finish with?
I think they don't go. I think they don't get past the first round of the playoffs because of that.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, intentionally walking somebody with nobody on and 2 outs in the playoffs.
If you're somebody facing the Yankees, the goal is if Soto hits a homer the other way, tip your hat. But he's a great hitter. But if he can go the other way on 97, more power to you.
Yeah.
If Austin Wells beats you, I go in front of the microphone and go, way to go, Austin.
It's a stupid season.
He'll hit 50 because he's just the things he does in the phone booth, sort of around his belly button. He does it better than anybody on earth, right? He's not trying to pull everything. He pulls it because he has a good approach, and he's looking for a quadrant in a certain zone, and he'll speed himself up, right? His hands are his eyeballs. He tells you that all the time, right? Anytime you see him in a cage, that's why he has his hands away from his body. He wants his hands to be directed towards the baseball, right? Eyes, here they are. If it's in, my eyes are directing a barrel to it. Whack. It's just real easy, right? He's not overthinking that. It's happening around the belly button, right? He's got the natural little sort of that upper half bend and the lean back, and he's trying to catch it around the belly button because he's got so much power. That's why he'll hit 50. I mean, he's
42.
He's won the MVP already, so
it's pretty ridiculous.
It is.
He's
it's
also
crazy.
9 feet tall. So.
He is unbelievably tall and plays center field. I mean, he's a freak.
Pretty good.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And that's the scary part is what if Vladdy turns into that? Because he's a late bloomer.
Yeah, he is.
And he's about the age of when he started getting hot. It's about the age of Vladdy.
Aaron Judge didn't make his debut until he was 24, right?
And then he started becoming Judge around that 26 mark.
Yep.
How old's Vladdy?
He is 25. So there you go. All right. When we come back, we'll talk to Jim Duquette, former Major League GM, currently an analyst for MLB Network Radio. It's Blair and Barker, Ben Ennis in for Jeff Blair, Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet. Blair and Barker, Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet. Ben Ennis in for Jeff Blair. Blue Jays losing 2 out of 3 to the Oakland A's, starting a stretch of 16 consecutive games against sub-500 opponents. So 1-2 to start that with 13 to go. 7 upcoming during this stretch against the Anaheim Angels of Los Angeles, whatever. Anthony Rendon is back. Mike Trout not back. All right, let's talk to Jim Duquette, former Major League general manager, currently MLB Network radio analyst. How's it going, Jim?
Hey, what's up, guys? Good afternoon.
Thanks for doing this. So we spent a lot of time, especially during a 22-game hitting streak for Vladimir Guerrero Jr., talking about potential extension conversations with him this offseason. What's complicating matters, Jim, is that the president might only have 1 year left on his deal. The GM might only have 2 years left on his deal. I mean, how common is it for a front office to give a player like a decade-long extension when their own contracts run out like in the first couple of years of that thing?
It is unusual. It's not unheard of, though. I think it's more difficult when, let's say, what happened last year with the Cubs. Their general manager and president of baseball operations, I think, have 1 year left in their deal, and they signed the manager up for 5. That's a little more awkward. The manager has a longer term than the GM, the guy that his boss. And that's rare. It happens occasionally, but I think with the GM and the president, their job always, and it's hard because there's a human element here, but their job is to make sure that the organization they make interest in their decisions based on the best interest of the organization, and so if that becomes a moment where they can get Vladdy signed up to a deal that makes sense, then they will do it. And I don't think it'll be an issue at all. It shouldn't be an issue. And I would be shocked if they even tried to use that as an excuse not to sign him.
Jim, you have any idea what the number would be?
So, he's a fascinating case because the first base market, if you look at it, it's not great. Even the top first basemen that are paid right now are Freeman, right, in L.A., and Olson in Atlanta. So and that number for Olson is the highest. It's like 166. Now Pujols, we know he was 240. Vladimir Guerrero was further than that. Neither of those two contracts ended well. Right. I think you also know that that's not going to happen. That's not going to end well. It's final 2 or 3 years, depending on if it goes into age 38, 39, 40 seasons. So with all that, with Vladdy, the viewpoint it would be for me. And this year you got Alonso coming out as free agent, Christian Walker is a free agent. Like those guys are going to get. I think Alonso's going to get surprisingly lower than what he thinks. Probably 6 years. Walker maybe gets 5 years. And so Vladdy's going to be, he's going to be put into a corner here. And so this is going to be about, does Toronto as a young player, their core guy, impactful, high profile, do they want to pay the extra money premium to keep him there? And when that happens, it's usually a number that starts with a 3. And I wouldn't go there. But I think that's what Vladdy and his group would ask for.
So why wouldn't you go there? Just because of historical precedence, because of the positional thing? I mean, he's younger than those guys when he'll be signing a potential extension, right? He's 25 right now. He'll be 26 next season. Why is it exactly that you wouldn't go 300 with Vladdy?
So to me, a big part of this is trying to figure out, well, okay, what if not Toronto, where? And for what number, right? So who out there is going to blow that first base market out, which, Vladdy's been amazing, how he's in great shape. He's moving around better than I've ever seen him over at first base. And, all the questions about the lack of power that we saw, those are gone. Like he looks back to Vladdy from a few years ago, MVP type Vladdy. But is there another team out there or two that are going to go to that 300 number as a first baseman? We just haven't seen it, in quite a while. I mean, last time Pujols signed that contract, I think it was, was it 08, 07, somewhere in that range, 2008. So I just don't know if I see another team out there willing to go to that number. Now, would they go into the mid-2s for him? Maybe, and probably. And so I think that has to weigh into this a little bit. But we will never know that unless he actually goes out to free agency, right? So that's the tricky part. If you're at both sides of this, you got to try to figure out where the common ground is here.
Jim, you think that's sort of a process of you have to sign Vladdy to a big deal before you can go out and say get more grown men in your lineup? That's what the Jays need. Like, they don't need Barkers of the world. They need grown men. Grown men cost money. Like, isn't that a process? Like, don't you have to do one before you can do the other?
I like your term. I call it the hairy-chested men, the grown men, the adults, whatever term you want to use.
Great.
I like your term. I do think that that there is a big question, if you're going to attract other players, there is, okay, what does your team look like? That's what all these high-profile free agents. Let's say Juan Soto's out there. I think Toronto should be in on Juan Soto this winter. Any of the teams that missed out on Ohtani certainly have the money for Soto, and Soto's going to cost less. So less than $700. I think that, if I'm Soto in his camp, I know what their questions are. What does your farm system look like? Who's going to be here long term? And what are you going to do with Vladdy? What is Vladdy going to be here? And the answer should be yes, right? And so I do think that that does factor into it. Now, is that going to stop Soto from signing in Toronto if they offer him the most money? No, it won't.
Yeah, going forward here, they can't go out and get an entire team. So some of these guys that are here already, like the Addison Bargers and the Joey Loperfitos of the world, right, that are competing for a roster spot and a part of the team going forward to get off to a good start. Jim, how do you grade players this late in the season, especially against some of the lesser competition because of the schedule? How do you go about that?
Yeah, this is a tough time to do it. I would say that. It's a little bit easier. You can believe the numbers a little bit more in, like, say, September. Like September numbers, we used to, in the front office, we didn't like evaluating in spring training, and we didn't like evaluating in September because the talent was watered down. The rosters were expanded to 35, 36. You weren't seeing the best pitchers a lot of times, and they were, players could do damage against lesser pitching. Now, with the limitations of the roster, they only expanded by, I think it's 2 now to get to 28 instead of some of these teams that were marching out guys that shouldn't even been in the big leagues. I think you can rely on your eyeballs and the evaluations a little bit more now. So, but to your point, some of these weaker teams that you're facing, it's definitely watered down when you're facing off against these teams that are really, really bad, like the White Sox and the Marlins. If you're playing any of those teams that have sold off their teams, but that has always been over time, something that you had to kind of work through. It was more. We weren't as worried about that. We were more concerned about the September call-ups, and that's been mitigated to some degree with the change.
Yep. Yeah, thank goodness we're past the days of 40-man rosters.
Hey, I was in that camp, Jim. I was a fan. I made more money in about that month than I made all the minor leagues. So I was happy in September.
You're sharing a locker with somebody because there wasn't enough room.
Yeah, who cares?
The veterans hated it. Like, can't even move around in the clubhouse.
It was fun to see some of those guys way down the depth chart. So Bo Bichette, he's working towards resuming baseball activities, I suppose. There's a month and a half left to go in the season. It does feel like they're just going to run it back and hope that he has one final great season and then exploring extensions or whatever, or if it goes sideways, trading him at the deadline next year. But there is an alternative path where he's traded this offseason, Jim. If you're an opposing team and you're looking at trading for Bo Bichette this offseason, do you need to see him on the field again this year?
Well, I would like if I was an opposing GM, I would like to see him play at some point this season. Yeah, and it wouldn't have to be a lot, but it would be enough where you could see him move around and make sure that injury was 100%. It would help. Now, would that stop me? No. Would it stop me from trying to lowball the Blue Jays because he had a bad season? No, I would do that too. And that's the problem that you have if you're Toronto. It's just it's trying to trade a guy who's coming off of a down year and an injury-plagued season. You're never going to get the value that you need, and PR pushback and everything else. Just the overall talent that you get back won't be worth it, and then you'll have to deal with the people like myself criticizing the trade. So a lot of times that just prevents the guy from being traded in the wintertime.
Yeah, if you're going to run it back too, you're going to need Bo. Like for me, it's more about the health thing. It's the right leg. That he just seems to have the entire right leg is an issue now, right? It was the quad, it was the knee, and now it's the calf. Like all the force he puts on that is a giant issue. So again, they have said they're running this thing back. I would think that would include him at least going into maybe the second half of next season. I want to move on a little bit and talk about the wild card in the National League. Who you got?
Sure.
Braves, Mets.
Oh my goodness! Well, I'm going to be talking about that tonight in the show in New York on the Mets TV, and I still don't have an answer. So let's talk it out right now.
Okay.
I mean, listen. If you told me a month ago the Atlanta Braves would be fighting for a third wild card, I would have said you're out of your mind. What have you been drinking? Like, there's no chance, right? I mean, I cannot believe how poorly and how bad they look right now. And unfortunately, the Mets don't look that good either. Now, they just had this ridiculous road trip that kind of jades my mind. They lost 6 of 10. I mean, they jumped from L.A. to St. Louis for one game. It was they had to replay. Then they had to go to Colorado. Then they went to Seattle. And now they're back to New York. They flew over 8,000 miles. So, I mean, that's a rough trip to go on. They have Oakland. It's not easy, but they have Oakland now, Miami. They can get themselves back on track. It really comes down for me. I look at the strength of schedule. They both have kind of similar schedules. They're going to play each other towards the end. Like, it's a toss-up for me. I don't like, personally, the Mets, the quality that I've seen out of them here lately. So my answer will be Atlanta. Now, in an hour, when I go on Mets TV, I'll be honest with you guys, I'm probably going to say Mets.
Oh, okay, real quick before I let you move on. I think the Braves we're up 8-2 against the Rockies and then got beat. How hard is it, or is a front office worried about sort of carryover, right? Getting past that little hump of, we got a team on the ropes we should always beat. We didn't. Now we got to move on. How hard is it to move on, Jim, from that?
Oh, well, from the front office, the first thing I'm wondering is how am my team, how's the players going to turn that around, right? So, like, in anything, I think that one thing, it's like, okay, Colorado is going to end up with 100 losses. You had a chance to make up some ground here against some weak teams. You didn't do it. It doesn't mean you can't. Doesn't mean you can't make up for it. But you just made your job a lot harder because now the schedule's getting tougher. So I think that part of it. But there's also an underlying issue there that they don't have. Seemingly don't have the bullpen pieces to lock that game down. Those are rare losses right there. And man, do they hurt? They have, an everlasting kind of lingering effect that you're hoping you can just get rid of the next day. And I guess we'll have to wait and see what Atlanta does. But that was a stunner.
Hard.
Yeah. It's a wild back and forth in the National League. Race to the finish. I mean, you mentioned Juan Soto and not going to get the $700 million that Shohei Ohtani got. I mean, it's going to be close, though. I mean, he's 25 years old. He's having his best season. The only season where he had an OPS higher than this was the weirdo 2020 season where he only played 47 games. He's doing it at Yankee Stadium. Do you think the Mets could bid up the Yankees? Like, could we see a bidding war between those two teams in New York now that he's proven that he can carry it over into the Bronx?
I hope so. I hope we see it. No, I think we will see a bidding war. I really do. I think when I look at the Mets team, this is the type of offensive player that they need. And the kind of youth that they need to put into their lineup as well. And, if you're the Yankees, they obviously didn't go trade for him to then just be a one and done, so they're going to be all in. And basically their owner said they were going to be, make every effort to sign him. They actually would have preferred to try to sign him in season, which Soto didn't want to do. So I think that this will be the first time that both teams have pursued the same free agent that I can recall.
Yeah.
I was in the Mets for 15 years. If we found out they were pursuing someone, we were like, no, we have no chance. We're not going to get them. And they haven't really pursued the same free agents, since I've been gone too, the last 15 years. So I am fascinated to watch this one. And I think the Giants are a sleeper in this one.
Yeah.
And maybe even the Nationals, because they have payroll flexibility, and they originally offered him $400 million before they traded him.
Yep. And who would have thought that was a wise decision by Juan Soto? Obviously him and his agent did, and it proved to be correct. Jim, this is a whole lot of fun. Thanks for
awesome.
this.
Thanks,
all right,
Jim.
Guys. All right, talk to you soon.
See you later.
There's Jim Duquette, former Major League GM, MLB Network radio analyst. There are no guarantees in the game of baseball. It's a lot of variables up and down. And
sure.
Boy, Juan Soto's as close as you can get.
Yeah, look, I've talked to some people around the Yankees that will be shocked if they offer him more than they offered the captain. Like
then you're guess what? You don't get Juan Soto.
That's it. Like I've had numerous conversations. Well,
I understand
more than one,
that. Like Aaron Judge is better. They have different ages.
Yeah, Cole's got this amount of money, and Judge has this amount of money, and you're going to go in and almost give a guy double of what Judge is making when Judge is the behemoth and the best player on planet Earth right now. Like
that's the way it goes.
It's like, is it?
I mean, if you want Juan Soto,
it's the captain of the New York Yankees.
I get it.
I mean, that carries a little bit different than it does if you were the captain of the Blue Jays, or it just does. No offense, but it does. Like, so I'm intrigued about that. It is. So there may not be as many teams, right? That might give a little leg up to like the Giants, like the Nationals, that maybe, and then, the owner for the Yankees came out and said the payroll thing like a couple of months ago, we're being careful around that.
Forth.
Yeah, like it's like he's trying to ride the fence on sort of not sticking his foot in his mouth, which is, you don't want to do that. You want to give away your hand. It's just, that's intriguing. It's intriguing to listen to Jim talk about how you evaluate players on teams that are trying to run it back. Like I mean, how do you know if Lopefito's any good? Like, how do you know if Barger's any good? Like, I think we got a decent idea of Ernie Clement, and again, expectations are. We've seen that with Bo and Vladdy. Like when you just add that to your name, it's different. Like the Horowitz of the world. Like, I'm not saying Clement's going to come in here and be the starting third baseman, but he's going to be a big part of it. Like, he's going to play 4 days a week probably, right? Somewhere, somehow. Like, he's going to play against lefties. Like, there's going to be a spot where there's going to be platooning.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to be third. I don't think it's going to be second. Like, there's going to be some opportunity there. So I just wonder, right? I'm sure they hook a machine up to all these guys and tell you what their bat speed is and all the stuff that's, whatever it is that makes it easier for them to judge whether predicting the future is a little bit easier. Because as well as anybody, that's what them khakis are trying to do, is predict the future.
Yeah.
Why do you think going into the season, we got faith in the coaches and the core? Core's 2 people. Yeah, how's that working out? So predicting the future is not the easiest thing to do. So
it does start with results, though.
Does it?
I would think so.
I mean, you put a lot on Kirky going into spring training in this season, and how's his last season go? Wasn't great. Like you put.
And I think as a result, because the performance has not been good, that there needs to be a greater emphasis on getting someone who's a more legit starting catcher.
Hitting cleanup.
Yeah.
Somebody's in there going, this is okay. Like, this is fine.
Yeah.
I mean, this is nobody argues that Dalton Varsho is not a tremendous outfielder. But there is some times where it's an empty at bat. Like, you can't have him and Horowitz hitting in the top 4 of your order starting next season. If you do, good luck selling that to anybody you're trying to sell it to. Like, it's just, again, this gets back to that obvious part of this is you've tried this the last couple of off seasons. It's just, again, you got to be quick. You got to be real good at evaluations, right? You got to say, because you can't go out and get an entire team. So that's why it's very important. Does he have enough bat speed? Does he have hand-eye coordination? If he makes a little adjustment and keeps it more square to his target, can he get to better quadrants against velocity? Like, can I make him better and not chasing the breaking ball? When he gets a hanger, is he going to hit it out? Like, my evaluation's got to be quicker, better, and more efficient. So I can get off to a better start going into next season. Because, again, the dudes, Springer, Varsho, and Kirk, in your starting rotation, opening day.
Yeah.
Means you got to do some heavy lifting in the offseason.
Yeah, it's one thing if they're at the bottom of your order. You're right. It's another thing if they're in the middle of your order. I'm done evaluating. I think Dalton Varsho, I can hit at the bottom of your order, and he can pick it in center field. George Springer, because of the contract, he's going to be playing right field. You need a left fielder. You need a third baseman. You need another bat, whether that's a full-time DH.
That's heavy lifting, boy.
Or another catcher for
Not
sure.
Barkers. You got to need some big boys.
Yeah.
Where the Bows and the Vladdies, when they walk in the room, are like, it's go time.
Yeah.
And it ain't been go time in a while since they were in that minor league park.
Yeah.
It was go time then because all that people that were around them too.
Yeah.
It ain't been go time since. So hopefully it is go time, and it's a lot of fun because it will be a lot of fun adding that and seeing if you can get the best of Vladdy day one till the end.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Awesome.
22-game hitting streak coming to an end. We'll talk to Jayson Stark of The Athletic next as Blair and Barker continues. Ben Ennis in for Jeff Blair. It's Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet. Blair and Barker, Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet. Ben Ennis in for Jeff Blair. This just becoming official right now. So the expected move before the Blue Jays' first game of their 3-game series in Anaheim against the Angels has now been officialized. Will Wagner, selected to the Major League roster, will be active for tonight's game as Luis De Los Santos optioned to AAA.
Yeah, we want to see him, right?
Yep.
Yeah, he's a contact guy. He's got baseball IQ, which is a big deal. And he's sure-handed, which is exactly what they want. Is he the fastest guy? No. Does he have the greatest of arms? No. Does he have tremendous power? No. But baseball IQ guys, he's sort of similar to Biggio.
Yeah.
He's sort of like your Kevin, the 8-pitch out, and he's going to run the bases the right way. So.
Yeah. Well,
maybe he's going to be more. There's competition.
Yeah.
If you're a Jays fan, that's what you want.
Yeah, I'm more than willing to just, see a new face in here, especially after what the offense did over the weekend against the Oakland A's. Again, 3-game series in Anaheim starting tonight. I expect Will Wagner to be in the lineup somewhere, maybe at third base. All right, let's bring in Jayson Stark of The Athletic. How's it going, Jason?
Dan, how are you?
I'm doing – hey, we're doing very well. So we just saw Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s 22-game hitting streak come to a close. So almost halfway to Joe DiMaggio's 56-gamer. I mean, there are some just unbreakable records in sports, and especially this sport. I mean, let's just keep it to baseball. It just the way batting averages have dipped, that one feels like there is just we'd have to be living 200 more years to see that thing ever get broken.
All right. Yeah, I actually just wrote about this a few weeks ago, Ben. And one of my long-standing beliefs is I never wanted to pay attention to any hitting streak until it got halfway to DiMaggio. That was your expression.
Yeah.
How long do you think it's been since anybody got halfway to DiMaggio? You got any recollection?
I know nobody's cracked 40 since Pete Rose. Pete Rose had 44 and 78,
Ben's
right?
cheating. He's looking it up.
I looked it up before.
Luis Ariz had 28. That was 2 years ago.
28.
Yeah.
28. Luis Ariz.
No. So you want to hint? Former Blue Jay.
Shannon Stewart? No.
Tell us. I have no idea. Tell us.
John Allroad?
Whit Merrifield.
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah.
You know how many active players have ever had a 30-game hit streak?
5.
You're so high. 2.
Yeah.
2.
Yeah.
It's Freddie Freeman and Whit Merrifield. That's all. So, I mean, Vlad didn't make it to 25, right? So we've only had 6 25-game hit streaks in the last 5 seasons combined. 2005 to 9, there were 16. So where is this trending? How is anybody ever going to hit in 56 games in a row anymore? I mean, I don't want to say anything's impossible. Maybe Luis Ariz could do it, but it looks more unbreakable every year before you even start to add in the pressures that, say, social media would add to somebody who started to chase it.
Jason, I blame front offices. I mean, they teach everybody now to have an uppercut in their swing. Like to do that, you got to cover different quadrants, right, and different speeds. And I mean, other than Freddie, who's got that little weird finish with the little awkward uppercut that nobody can ever duplicate, all the other guys you just mentioned there have level swings, right? Vladdy's got a short little level swing, right? A steep path, catching everything out front, but it's level. He can get up and down and hit the breaking ball when he's mechanically sound and can use the entire field. They just don't teach that anymore. Like, they don't pay people to do it anymore. So I don't think we'll ever see it.
All right. Well, I'm just interested to see if, say, Stephen Kwan gets paid, right? Or Luis Ariz gets paid, because maybe that would change this. If those guys got big bucks, maybe that would have an impact on future generations. But, maybe you guys remember this. I want to say 2 months ago, Saris and I in The Athletic wrote a piece about why batting average was at close to historic lows, right? And what we got back was that nobody cares about that stat anymore. And so if we're not going to care about batting average anymore, then are we going to care about hit streaks anymore? Are we really going to live in a world where you hear this now? He extends his hit streak to 7 games.
Yeah.
I don't care about a 7-game hit streak. It's just a reflection of where the game's going.
Yep.
Yeah. What we care about is 42 home runs. That's how many Aaron Judge has this season.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Also, 13 intentional walks. The single season record for intentional walks, of course, every walk stat is owned by Barry Bonds, but it's stupid. 120 intentional walks in a season. And people are making the comparable to pitching to Aaron Judge and pitching to Barry Bonds. Is that a fair comparison? Is Aaron Judge right now, and he's right-handed, I understand, but like as close to Barry Bonds as Barry Bonds was during his prime?
I don't know that anybody quite approaches what Barry was in that period of 2001, 2, 3, 4. That was insane. But the thing about Aaron Judge is, John Schneider said this, when he hits a ball, when he squares it up, it's basically 100% of the time landing in somebody's popcorn box.
Yep.
So he's about to hit his 300th homer before he gets to his 1000th hit. I spent a lot of time looking at this last week. I could only find Mark McGwire as a guy who had ever done that. And so those are the kinds of players who get into this realm that we're talking about. John Schneider started it. Then Ron Washington did it. We had 3 times he was intentionally walked with nobody on base in, I think, a span of 4 days. And I don't blame anybody for doing that now. But, Joel Sherman wrote a column about this in the New York Post, asking, if we're going to see more of this, should we change the intentional walk rule? So if you intentionally walk a guy, he gets to go to second base, or the second time you do it, he gets to go to second base. I don't know. Is it worth thinking about from an entertainment standpoint?
I think you don't hit Austin Wells cleanup. I think that's what it is, right? I mean, can you live with letting him beat you or Judge beat you? Jason, you've said on this show many times about how do you protect the best hitter? Is it the guy in front or the guy behind? Judge is telling you it's both. The one has to hit lots of homers that hits behind him, and the other one has to get on base all the time. Well, they've taken care of the one in front. They just don't have the one behind. So I blame the Yankees for that.
Yeah, I agree. Their lineup's not deep enough. Now, Stanton just came back, and over the weekend, we had a game where Soto hit 2 home runs hitting in front of Judge, and then Stanton hit a home run after Judge got intentionally walked. So then Bruce Bochy pitched to Judge, and he hit a homer. So like that is optimal, right? That is how they would draw it up. We have a guy you fear hitting behind him, and we have a guy who's always on base hitting in front of him. But Stanton has never consistently been that guy. It's what they always dreamed he would be, but he's not. He's not healthy enough to be that guy, and he doesn't make enough contact to be that guy. And it's the reason why when we talk about who could win the World Series, it's hard to think the Yankees are that team, because the bottom of their order, the portion of their lineup after you get past Judge, just doesn't seem like it's good enough.
Blue Jays starting this series in Anaheim tonight, and they don't get to see Mike Trout because nobody gets to see Mike Trout for the rest of the season. It's just it's a bummer, man. And I think he's already a Hall of Famer if he never plays another game in his career. I think he will. Goodness, I hope so. But not this season. He's 3-time MVP, 4-time finishing second in the MVP voting. It's silly. This is a guy that, we didn't talk about being a Hall of Famer, Jason. We talked about him being a top 5 player, if not the best player in baseball history. I mean, is there still time? He's still in his early 30s. Could he get back on track to being like a Mount Rushmore guy, or is that done?
Okay, so to be a Mount Rushmore guy, are you saying he has to be one of the 4 greatest players of all time?
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
I don't know if he has time for that anymore.
Yeah.
I think we're still going to look back on Mike Trout as an all-time great, but when we tell his story now, what part of the story is all the games he's missed going to become? Because the last 4 seasons, he's now missed, it's almost 400 games, I think, right? I was fiddling with this at one point this summer. The last 4 seasons, he's played fewer games than Eric Hosmer, who's been he's out of the sport now, but it seems like for the last 3 years, he's been a non-person. He's been an invisible man in the sport. He's played more games than Mike Trout over the last 4 years. And it just makes me sad because I don't want this to be Mike Trout's legacy, but I think it's inescapable now. When we tell the story of Mike Trout, we'll tell the story of all the good times, but then right in the same sentence, we'll be talking about how many games he missed. The only way for him to erase that narrative is for 2025 onward to be a time when we actually get to see him play, and even better would be playing in October.
Jayson, if I said Ellie De La Cruz's name to you, what's the first thing that pops in your mind?
Fun. Most fun player to watch in this sport. Is it? Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think his size, position he plays, the things he can do offensively, he's only going to get better. I think that's what you think.
That's right. He's still figuring it out. And I was on MLB Network. We were talking about him last week. He's stolen, I think it's 27 more bases than the next closest guy. And he's got a higher slugging percentage than Pete Alonso and Kyle Schwarber.
Wow.
All right. He's got 20 homers and he leads the sport in stolen bases. And I think the chart that I had him put up was all the guys who have done this in history. And it was Willie Mays, Ronald Acuna, and I want to say Alfonso Soriano, something like that.
Yeah.
It's just incredible to contemplate what he already is. And you just said it, Kevin. Think about where he's going.
No question.
Yeah. He's in his early 20s. Blue Jays fans have a chance to see him a week from today. Reds in town for a 3-game set.
As long as they don't waste him.
Yeah.
Jayson, that's it, right? It's like the Trout and the Angels. Just Reds, don't waste him.
Yeah, the Angels have already wasted Mike Trout's prime. There's a lot of Ellie De La Cruz's prime to come. I don't know. A lot of their pitching questions got answered this year, and because of all the injuries, the lineup piece hasn't been there. But I think there's a big year ahead for that team. I do.
Mm-hmm. And we'll see you again a week from today. They're in Toronto to play the Blue Jays. So we just saw the Olympics wrap up in Paris with no baseball, but it'll be back in 4 years. And boy, you hear a lot of major leaguers like Mike Trout feels like he's the leader of the contingent that wants to go. He wants to play in this thing for Team USA in Los Angeles. Do you think it happens, Jayson? And how important to the growth of the sport would it be to have baseball and the major leaguers at the Olympics in 4 years?
Ben, I think you asked that exactly right. I think it's really important. They tell us every year how much they want to globalize their sport, right? What's a better way to globalize your sport? 2 games in London, one of them's at 9:00 in the morning here, or they get your stars in the Olympics. What's a better way to globalize your sport? Opening day in Asia, or the WBC, which are competing with March Madness, or your star players in the Olympics? I think the answer is obvious, isn't it? I used to think they would never let this happen. There are a lot of rumblings now that it will happen in LA in 2028. I can go through them with you if you want, but I think there's a better chance of it happening now than at any point since I've been covering baseball.
Just look at the basketball team, right? Look at LeBron, how he went after that and just, couldn't wait to represent his country. Like that's part of it, right?
Oh my God. And we were watching that game in my house, and hey, it looked at one point like they were going to lose.
I know.
I said to my wife, "You really think LeBron and Steph are going to let that team lose?"
They were
are
trying.
not.
They were trying.
They tried, but when it came down to it, those two guys played with an intensity that just jumped off the screen at you. And the big thing is, it jumped off the screen at baseball players too. And so we're really starting to hear the stars talk about wanting to be there. And you've got a unique opportunity in 4 years because the travel's easy.
Yep.
It's right here in the States, in LA. The calendar works easier than it ever has because if you look at that Olympic schedule that year, it starts on July 14th, which would be right around what would normally be the All-Star break. I know they've talked about actually, all right, we'll play the All-Star game in LA, have a home run derby, like a few days, do it all a few days before the Olympics start, and then segue right into an Olympic tournament. Like the stars have lined up. There's still obstacles, but we're at the point now, if you really want to make it happen, you can make it happen. You got to figure out insurance. You've got to figure out if you have to shorten the season. You got some of the same obstacles as the WBC with these teams that don't want their stars to play and especially to pitch. But there's such an opportunity. And I think more people want it to happen than have ever wanted it to happen before.
Yeah, I want to see it happen, but I will say it probably means the end of the WBC, at least for it being the most meaningful. I mean, and for it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I will say Shohei Ohtani versus Mike Trout in the final pitch of the WBC had some cachet. It's hard to consider that the preeminent international tournament when major leaguers are going to the Olympics.
Yeah, well, soccer has the World Cup and the Olympics, and they're both meaningful. The WBC in February and March can't ever be what this would be, because if you had Shohei Ohtani versus Mike Trout in the last at bat of the Olympics,
that'd be awesome.
It's July. Yeah. You're not competing with anything except the other Olympic events. So I don't know how many times I have to say this. This is a unique opportunity. I don't know what would happen down the road. I mean, you don't have to even shorten the season probably if you have it in LA. If the Olympics are in Beijing, yeah, you do. But I've always thought that the best way to turn the WBC into what you want it to be is to have the finals and semifinals the week of the All-Star game at the site of the All-Star game. And it's just lining up for you to do that now with the Olympics.
Yeah, it sounds too easy. Okay, before we let you go, I'm saved the best one for last. The Phillies got swept by the Diamondbacks. They've allowed 23 runs their last two games. What's going on in Philly, Jason?
Well, there's a few things going on. I mean, one is they're pitching terrible.
Yeah.
Their ERA in the second half is now over 5. And that is a whole chain reaction, as you know. But I think something else happened. And that is they had a huge lead. They had a 10-game lead in June. And they kind of used it as an opportunity, they thought, to, all right, let's have JT Realmuto go get that knee surgery, and by the time he comes back, we'll still be fine. Let's shut down Taijuan Walker and Ranger Suarez for an extended period and let them get healthy because we can. And, it's an interesting thing that happens in baseball when you start to send the message to the players that it's more important for us to survive the marathon than to win tonight. And I think the team has lost its edge a little bit. So all of a sudden, if you start looking at the standings in the National League, the Phillies and Dodgers had the same record. The Brewers are now a game and a half behind. And then you have the Diamondbacks and the Padres. They're not that far behind. And you had this big separation for a long time, Phillies and Dodgers and everybody else. All of a sudden, The Phillies are no lock for the number 1 seed. They could be the number 3 seed. And that changes everything. So all of a sudden, 7 games left. They've got to refocus themselves and realize that another messy week like they just had, they're the number 3 seed. So they're in a completely different realm now than they were. So I'll really be interested to see if they can find that mindset that made them what they were for 3 months.
Yeah. They were a dominant team for a good portion of the season.
It's a good thing the Braves stink, too.
Because they're leading the NL East.
They'll be in the tournament.
The Braves will.
Sizable.
You think so? Oh, the Phillies will. Absolutely. The Phillies, no question.
The Phillies will be in the tournament.
Yeah.
The Braves, I think there are questions whether they'll be in the tournament.
There will be. Absolutely.
Jayson, appreciate the time. Thanks for this.
Thanks, buddy. You're the best.
Dan, Kevin, enjoyed it, man. Thanks.
See ya.
See ya. There's Jayson Stark of The Athletic. I mean, if you just have to go back to last season to what Jason's talking about. Hey, if you're home and cooled out all season long, or if you're battling for a playoff spot all the way to the end, like the Diamondbacks and the Rangers were, locking horns in the World Series. Is there something to that?
Absolutely.
You know, that you're not sitting back, you're getting your rotation all lined up for the postseason. Sure, that's a benefit, I guess. But, playing meaningful baseball all the way down the stretch seemed like it worked for those 2 teams last year.
Yeah, I think you got a little bit of, like Jayson said, a little bit of a window to get people healthy, the right people, so you can hit the ground running when it matters the most. I mean, it's World Series or bust for the Phillies, right? As much money as they spent, where Dombrowski's at, and what they're trying to do as an organization, and, who their first baseman is. And you could go down the list of who their 3 starters are. Like, they got enough horses. It's just getting everybody on the right track at the right time. So, and we wham. Like, if you're a Blue Jays fan and you're listening to, basically where our lead's too big, so we allowed our really good catcher to go and have knee surgery, and we've lost a little bit in the standings. I mean, it's like a little woe's me. But to Jason's point, the first seed's big for them. Like, it's, you want home field advantage. You want to have the lesser teams to come into that park and have to work through all that to get where they want to go. So, it just adds a different element, right? It's a marathon, not a sprint. I think sometimes people forget that. And even veteran, experienced players that are elite sometimes forget that and need to be pushed in the right way. So I'm sure that's what's going on. They'll figure it out, and they'll be a good team at the end.
Nobody needs to remind the Blue Jays it's a marathon. The marathon continues tonight in Anaheim against the Angels. We're giving you the chance to win Blue Jays tickets all season long here on Blair and Barker. All you have to do is text the correct answer to our daily baseball trivia question to 590-590. Now, standard message and data rates, they may apply. Our last question and answer was this outfielder played for both the Reds and the Blue Jays, best known as a member of the White Sox.
Yeah, our boy was
when his
this question.
Real catch.
Yeah, it's Friday. Remember?
Preserved a perfect game for Mark Burley. That was D-Way and Wise. Today's question is to win tickets to see Jays Reds.
He punted again. Our boy punted again on the questions.
On Wednesday, August 21st. The answer is not Joey Votto, okay? But this player started his career with Cincinnati, but flourished later with Toronto, where he made the All-Star team 3 times and led the AL 1 year in RBIs with 127. Okay.
Did I give it away?
I mean, I think the question gave it away, but okay. Text the answer to 590-590 for your shot to win. See rules at sportsnet.ca/590. Standard message and data rates may apply, as I mentioned. So as I also mentioned earlier, it's now official. Will Wagner has been activated, selected to the Major League roster, active for tonight's game against the Angels. Luis De Los Santos, thanks for picking up your first Major League RBI. Back to Buffalo you go. That's okay. It's all right. At least he leaves on a high, I guess. Haven't seen the lineup yet. Don't believe the Blue Jays have published one. But, yeah, Will Wagner, like you said, is a guy it doesn't exactly have light tower power. Now, lots of guys have developed power later on in his career. So maybe that's there with Will. I believe he hit at least 1 home run in his brief time with the Bisons. Yeah. Not that means all that much.
I think it's the position he plays. I mean, where's he playing, right? Does he have enough arm strength to play third?
Yeah.
You know, the dude that's playing second, you want to see if he's a part of your future. And Horowitz, like, where's he playing? Is he DHing? Will he play first a little? Can he, he's more of a on the right side of the field than the left side of the field. I mean, Ernie, I would think, will play a little short. So you could sort of give that open at third. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter. His footwork seems to be pretty good. Like the way he catches the ball, the way he falls his throw. I have talked to people about that, right? That's where the baseball IQ comes in. Mm-hmm. He makes up for his woes by, I got to catch it a little sooner. I got to get the ball released a little sooner. I got to follow my throw a little better. We even had his dad on here, who's pretty good, used to be a pretty good player.
Yep.
And his dad said the exact same thing, that, nobody's going to outthink him. He's not going to mess up because, he didn't think it through. Mm-hmm. So hopefully he gets some playing time. I do love that he's left-handed.
Yeah.
They don't have enough of those. So.
Well, all of a sudden they do have more than they used to a couple of years. Yeah.
We're trying to find out if they're any good or not, which is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They got a lot of them. I don't know how many of them are average to above average major league bats. We'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe this is one. They're going
Hopefully
down.
Get a hater.
Yeah. They're going
That'd
down
be a good start.
The well of sons of major leaguers yet again. Of course, the son of, as you mentioned, Billy Wagner. All right. When we come back, we'll talk to Buck Martinez, who maybe has talked to Will Wagner. Maybe ahead of his major league debut tonight in Anaheim. Yeah, he probably has.
Yeah.
Buck Martinez next. As Blair and Barker continues, Ben Ennis in for Jeff Blair. Sportsnet 590, The Fan, and Sportsnet.
Why am I such a good mood on Monday?
I don't know.
It's weird, eh? Blair will be back Thursday, so all that good mood will come to an end.
Yeah, no show on Friday. Blue Jays.
No show on Friday?
Yeah. Is that news to you?
Stay hot. No, we'll have to do the show after.
What
time's the show? What time's the game? 3 o'clock?
It's a 2 o'clock game.
Yeah. We'll
at Wrigley.
Yeah. We'll be in here.
Okay. All right. Did I lower your mood a little bit?
No. I like the Cubbies is fun. That's a fun place to play.
One of the ballparks that is on my list that I've yet to go
beautiful.
to. Yeah.
I've not been to the upgraded version. Mm-hmm. That's what you were talking about earlier about doubling up blockers. I did that in Wrigley.
Oh yeah,
it's awful. Like it's like it's smelly and it's like because the clubhouse, the tunnel to the field was windy and it's real tiny and you couldn't walk together. You had to walk. You bend over when you walked through it, and then you walked out in this and it was like, what?
Did
they fixed that though? I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't been there since they fixed it, but they have fixed that.
Did you view that as a hitter's ballpark? Because this year it's not.
Absolutely.
It's not playing as a hitter's ballpark, but yeah, generally.
Normally, I would get back to that because if you remember last year, the Blue Jays hitters were complaining about the ball not flying at the.
Yeah.
And everybody that would come in here, the ball would. So basically, a lot of that is you get the right guy standing up there doing the swinging.
Yeah. Sammy Sosa made it look small. No question about that. All right, Blue Jays starting a 3-game set in Anaheim against the Angels. Tonight, Bowden Francis against the righty Davis Daniel. Let's talk to Buck Martinez. How's it going, Buck?
It's going all right. How are you guys doing today?
Doing very well. So we just heard the news that Will Wagner has been activated for tonight's game. I don't know if you've seen him or what you're expecting from him and whether he'll be in the lineup tonight. Have you heard anything about Will Wagner other than what we've seen on the Baseball Reference page?
Yeah, I sure have been. I talked to Casey Candell this morning. And, of course, Casey had him in AAA Buffalo. And I said, Casey, what do you got with Will Wagner? He said, baseball player. Mm-hmm. That's good news. But Kevin, you know all about that. He's a guy from Virginia. He's Billy Wagner's kid. He played for Billy Wagner in high school. And, he's a pretty interesting guy. And he's hot as hell right now. So I'm anxious to see him. And I bet you see him in the lineup tonight.
Where do you think he plays, Buck? What position?
I think he's going to play second. He played first in DH most of the time in AAA with Houston. And Casey told me when he first got to Buffalo, they played him a lot at second. They didn't play much at first. And, they played him a little bit at third. And I said, well, what do you think? Casey hadn't seen him an awful lot, but he said he looks pretty comfortable out there. But the one thing that impressed me was he said he has the same kind of at-bats as Spencer Horwitz, which is really encouraging. He said he's got a good strike zone awareness. He's very patient. He gets on base. And like I say, right now, he's hot as hell.
Okay, well, Buck, what should we read into Joey Loperfido, the 32 at-bats and 16 Ks? Now, I get it. He's a swing and miss guy. But, Buck, he is having a lot of non-competitive at-bats. And I just don't know, trying to – again, they're trying to grade these guys, I would assume, as quick as they can, knowing what they have to do, the heavy lifting, and – can he be a part of it? But what have you seen from him? What do you think might be a little tinker that can help him sort of tap into the power that he does have?
I think he's going to be all right, Kevin. You get traded mid-season. You don't know anybody on the team. You don't know any coaches. You're thrust into a starting role, and you want to justify the trade. I mean, that's the reality. You know this. And when you get traded, you're trying to say, okay, I want to show you how good I am. And sometimes that creates problems for you. I'm not concerned about him at all right now. I think you just let him play it out. And, the coaches, and Guillermo Martinez, I talked with him a lot about this. He said, you can't really gain a guy's trust if you ambush him and say, hey, you can't hit like that. And the kid's going to think, hey, what do you mean? You haven't even seen me hit yet. And, what'd you say, 32 at bats? That's nothing.
No.
So, there's, you'd like to, he had a triple earlier when he was first here, and he's got good speed. He's an athlete. He's young. I'm anxious to see him play. I think, he's got a chance to be pretty good.
Davis Schneider obviously got off to such an incredible start to his major league career, and this season he got off to a tremendous start as well. It's been a really extended, rough go for him. Buck, what have you seen from Davis Schneider recently?
I think he's trying to recapture that month he had when he first came up last year. Mm-hmm. And he's saying, you know what, I got to do that to be in the lineup. And then now, all of a sudden, the competition has increased a little bit. So Davis is hitting just over 200, and, he's got some power, but Kevin, you can see it. I mean, you're a hitter. You understand what's going on. He's trying to hit everything out of the ballpark, and it's hard to do that. And he had such a great run when he first came up, had that great series in Boston, and a great month when he first got to the big leagues. But you know what? Pitchers make adjustments to you, and you got to counter those adjustments, and I think he will. He's obviously a very hard worker, but right now he's going through a tough time.
Yeah, Buck, competition's a beautiful thing, too, right? Every once in a while you grip that bat just a little bit tighter. He's a baseball player. You tend to look around you sometimes and notice that some guys are standing in the same position you're standing in. Like you go up there gripping a little. Buck, I've been there, boy. I know how that looks. I would have stood on my head if I'd have had to do that to try and get a hit and stay on a big league team. But I do want to ask you about Dalton Varsho. He had a couple of hits yesterday. Had one off the homer off the lefty. Now, he's hitting 292, slugging 444, OPS 807 versus lefties. Buck, are you seeing a different approach, something mechanical he's doing maybe different that maybe he could carry over against the right-handed thrower?
Yeah, I think so. You know what? You're a left-handed hitter. You really got to fight to stay on those pitches because a lot of those pitches are going away from you. The breaking ball and the fastball runs away from you. So I'm sure you had the same approach. I know you were more of a big power hitter, but what you have to think about is hitting it right over his head and from that point to left field and stay on those pitches. And if the pitch is a little bit slower, your hands will take care of it. And we're seeing that with Dalton now because his hands are taking care of those off-speed pitches and those pitches up in the zone that don't have that same zip on them, and he's hooking them down into the right field corner. So I think it's his approach that he's staying on pitches more. He's not trying to get underneath those pitches. Early in the season we saw an awful lot of pop-ups from him, but now he's starting to flatten out his bat path and swing and hit some line drives. He's pretty swinging the bat pretty good. I like him in the 2 spot as well. I think that's really good between Springer and Vladdy because, obviously you see Springer and Vladdy up there, and then you got this lefty in there, and you're going to be aggressive to the lefty trying to get him out so you can face Vladdy without anybody on. So I think he's in a good spot right now.
Okay, Bassitt said some comments about the roof yesterday, and I chuckled. Buck, a 35-year-old who had a bad first inning who says, the roof's closed, that wind ain't blowing that cutter and that sinker where it's supposed to be blowing it. Like, why ain't it? Like that, 18 inches. And he started dropping 13 inches, and I text around to see, how should I poke fun at this or should I be serious about it? And they said, every pitcher has to deal with the weather, regardless of whether that thing's closed or open. And that's sort of the way I took it when we started our show here. What do you make of that? Is there anything to that? Does it matter? Do you think any younger pitcher will listen to that and think differently about the way Bassitt goes about his starts?
No, I hope not. It's that's just part of the game, and I think more people are pleased about the roof being closed and opened. And I think I talked to a lot of players; they like it when it's closed. I wasn't a big fan of playing indoors when I was playing, but I think the biggest thing is, that surprised me. Just think about all the guys that had to pitch in Candlestick all those years with that wind howling and
crazy.
All those things that you had to deal with. But, yeah, that kind of surprised me coming from Chris. The fact is that he left a lot of pitches right in the middle of the plate.
Yeah.
And, I don't think it was, I don't think the wind had much to do with it, Kevin, honestly.
Yeah, I had a tough time answering the question, too, Buck. I just said every once in a while, boy, that 35-year-old just gets swirly and just wants to make some things up because, he turned around, it usually says 18 inches, and today it wasn't. So why is that? And he's come to that solution. So, he sort of laugh it on, you move on, and we had a good chuckle. I poked at him, and hopefully we don't hear it again.
Hopefully next time the roof is open. Beautiful Toronto day. Next time with Chris Bassitt starting at home. We got Bowden Francis tonight, though, Buck. And his last two starts have been real good against a really good offensive team in the Orioles. He had the relief appearance against the Yankees mixed in between. He's got that new splitter. I mean, have you seen a different Bowden Francis this time around as a starter?
Yeah, you know what? I think he's kind of changed his program a little bit because the curveball that was so effective for him last year hasn't been as effective this year. And I think the splitter has become a go-to pitch for him. The splitters in general around baseball, anybody that throws it, has pretty good command of it. And as a result, the numbers are very positive when they throw that splitter. But, all the splitters in baseball, the opponent's batting average is about 200 on the splitter. So if a guy is confident enough to throw it, it's a very good pitch. And I think Bowden's getting more comfortable with it. It's certainly a field pitch, and you know how finicky the pitch is for Kevin Gausman, and he's one of the best. So, there are days when it just doesn't come out your hand the right way, and there are other days when it's automatic. And I just think Bowden's gaining more confidence in that splitter. But once again, it all gets back to your fastball. We're going to see that tonight with Davis Daniel. He had a terrific outing his first time out. He was spotting his fastball anywhere he wanted to throw it. And when he doesn't do that, it gets hit. And, no matter who you are. And I talked to Candela about Jake Bloss, too. He pitched on Saturday in AAA. I said, what'd you see with Bloss? He said, he can pitch. He said he can command his fastball. He can throw the fastball for a strike down and away almost at will. And I said, well, isn't that a nice concept? That down and away fastball is still the best pitch in baseball. So he's encouraged by Bloss, and I'm encouraged by Bowden Francis. I think Bowden understands that you have to pitch ahead in this game. If you don't pitch ahead, and you know what? Let me tell you about a quote Juan Washington had out of his game when he had this young pitcher pitch for him yesterday. Kowanowitz pitched 7 2/3, and he went out there. And Kowanowitz started to nibble a little bit. And Wash said, hey, you've got a 5-run lead. In this business, you don't make adjustments until you have to. And they'll tell you when you make adjustments. So get back to throwing the ball over the plate. And walked off the mound, he pitched 7 2/3. Nice. So, it's all about commanding your fastball.
Yeah, and apparently Jake Bloss has that. It's graded as an above-average pitch for him. So, he didn't give up a run, only threw 50 pitches in his Bison's debut. Blue Jays do have 5 Major League starters on the Major League roster right now, Buck. Do you expect to see Bloss in the majors for the Blue Jays this year? Already made 3 starts for the Astros. Do the Blue Jays maybe consider a 6-man rotation?
I don't know if they're going to use 6-man rotation. I think they're going to see Jake Bloss. I think they want to see what he's got before the end of the season. And he'll probably make a start, maybe 2 more starts in AAA. And if he continues to progress in the right direction, I think we'll see him in September. I certainly want to see him. I'm sure Pete Walker wants to see him. I talked to Pete this morning about Bloss. He said, I've watched some of his games on video, and it looks like he's got a nice delivery, and he's got good command. He's 23 years old. And I think that's a big step forward for this organization. They haven't done a very good job of developing pitching. And you got to get somebody in, who develops pitching pretty well? Houston. So you go get one of their young guys and you plug him in. I'm sure we'll see him. I mean, if everything stays in the right direction and he stays healthy, I'm sure we'll see him pitch in September. But I don't think they're overly concerned about going to a 6-man rotation. I think they just want to see him pitch.
Buck, what's next for Yariel Rodriguez? Process. I hate that word, really, process. But what does that next look like for him?
I think he's gaining confidence with every outing. I think he had a little bit of a come to Jesus moment in New York when he got a little bit upset with the skipper, and the skipper had a chat with him the next day. But you know what? It's a hard game, and he had a lot of family and friends in New York, and he was upset he couldn't finish that 5th inning. He wanted to face Soto and Judge again, but John wanted to win the game. And John's very competitive, and you know what? Managers don't want to take pitchers out of the game. And you know what? Like David Price said when he first arrived in Toronto, if you don't like it, pitch better. And I think that's the one thing that I like Rodriguez a lot. I like what he does. I like how he pitches. His fastball's up to 97, Kevin, with good movement, and a lot of run. So I think he's going to be fine. I'm not concerned about him at all. I think he's just learning how to pitch. You know, he hasn't started much in his career.
Routines, right? That's what it's about in the big leagues.
Yeah. Vlad finally hitless for the first time in almost a month. Buck, obviously 2021 was a magical season for him. There's a lot more protection around him that season than there was or there has been this season for the large part. Can you compare watching him in 21 to what you saw the last month or so?
Yeah, he's hit the ball a lot harder the last month than he did in 21, even during his hot streak in 22. Yeah, I know he hit more home runs, but I think consistently he's hitting a lot more hard baseballs right now. And that, to me, is a reflection of him getting good pitches to hit. You know, it's always been a simple formula. If you want to hit, get a good pitch to hit. And guys have been chasing pitches. And, you know, that's why the average is so down in baseball. I think the major league average is under 250.
Yeah.
But everybody's just swinging, trying to hit it hard, and nobody makes any adjustments. And, you know, that lefty pitched yesterday, J.P. Sears, and just kind of flipped it up there and stayed away. And, you know, Blue Jays just kept wailing away at it instead of making an adjustment, crowding the plate, swinging, hitting to right, getting on base. But, you know, what happens in this game today, everybody's got exactly the same information. They've got the same video, they've got the same analytics, and nobody goes outside the box. So, you know, the hitters swing like they're going to pitch me tough every single time instead of trying to make an adjustment and make the pitcher make an adjustment to them. They just kind of bang heads, and as a result, we got a major league average under 250.
Yeah, it was a tough weekend for the Blue Jays offensively, no question about it. Maybe it changes tonight in Anaheim. Blue Jays, Angels, 1-3 on Sportsnet. Buck, thanks for this. Appreciate
you're
it.
great. Thanks, Buck.
Good to be with you guys. You have a great night.
You too. See you.
Too. Buck Martinez.
That's awesome.
Getting ready.
Best storyteller on the planet.
Yeah, he's seen a few things.
Man, I sat on the bench with him like a bazillion times. He just started rhyming off them stories, and you're like a little kid in a candy store. It's like he has played with, I mean, his borderline Babe Ruth. It's like, man, it's just like you can't stop. Just shut up and listen. That's basically what it is. He's tremendous. And what he's saying there is true, right? Do get you out one way, change it up, man. Force him to get you out another way, and it's rare. Like, it's just.
That used to be Ryan Yarbrough to the Blue Jays. It's not anymore because now he's a Blue Jay. So it's J.P. Sears doing his best Ryan Yarbrough impression yesterday.
Yeah, well, I think, again, that stat Buck said beginning of the show was their starters are like lefty starters are 9-14 now against the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays are 9-14 against lefty starters. It's just not good enough. Like, again, it's the quality of the hitter that you run up there consistently, where just every dude sort of has a different way of getting them out, right? It's just not always the lefties. I can elevate the fastball, I can flip it. They're going to cheat because they're trying to get to the elevated fastball. I don't have to throw my secondary stuff for strikes. Lefty, lefty, lefty. I know that second baseman, maybe that's a little different, but the norm is that guy. It's in with a sinker, it's slider down and away to the right. It's like you need to sort of have a different kind of look, right? Just a guy that if you throw one down the middle or you miss your spot, he's going to make you pay for it. And every once in a while, you got to think the thought out of it. You just got to know I'm better than you, and I'm going to beat you today.
Yeah.
It's rare. Hopefully they take care of that and they fix it. And, you know, I think they're a couple hitters away. That's me. I mean, a lot of people probably don't agree with me.
Depends on who those hitters are.
Yeah. I said grown men, hitters.
Yeah.
You know, dudes that can carry your team for weeks at a time.
Yep.
Not barkers.
No.
Dudes.
Yeah. And there's some available.
Absolutely. There's no excuses. They are some. Mm-hmm. And they need more than one. Like, it just can't be Tyler O'Neill coming in there with his 80 games played. Like, that can't be it. If it's Tyler O'Neill, then it's got to be somebody else. Teoscar and Tyler. Now you're sprinkling in some things. And
Teoscar's going to get paid. Holy cow.
Is he?
You don't think?
He got paid already. I mean, he's
making what, 25, 26 this year?
He'll make just a 3-year deal. Somewhere in there. 20, 25 a year, whatever it'll be. I mean, it ain't going to be a ton.
Yeah.
Because everybody's still saying the same thing. Can he play defense, both sides of the ball, baseball IQ, running the bases? Like, is this for real? Or are you sprinkling him around a bunch of dudes he can hit? Ohtani, Freeman, Betts when he's healthy. Like, that's a pretty good lineup for remember me? And then he hits the concrete in left center at the Chavez Ravine. Like, that's,
I don't know.
Like, again, it is like every once in a while you get sprinkled in the right lineup.
He's done this pretty consistently.
I'm not saying he's not a good hitter, and I'm not saying that he wouldn't make this lineup much better.
Yep.
But I'm saying it's him and somebody else.
It is.
Not just him.
It is a sliding doors moment in
But it's going to cost money. It's not my
2022.
money.
The Blue Jays just stand pat and keep a team that
you can't trade for the dudes that are available. You got to. Wait.
Yep. And Anthony Santander would look pretty good, but I'm sure Orioles fans are
shut your mouth.
Orioles fans are saying he already looks pretty good in this lineup, and we got a new owner.
If they'd have liked him, they'd have signed him already too.
Okay, you think that's a good indication?
I think so too. Yeah, his age,
he's 30.
all the players that they have coming up.
Yeah,
this is sort of the last little hurrah with him in the lineup, protecting the young guys. Some of the young guys now have graduated. You know, Gunnar Henderson might be him next year, right? The guy that can always count on.
Which one of these guys you want to pay too? I mean, Rutschman, Henderson.
Yeah, can't pay them all. And they got, like, they're oozing talent, which is a giant deal, right? It's that. I can teach you how if you got talent.
Yeah.
And they're just oozing out the pores of that organization. So I think if not now, when? Yeah. If you're another team like the Blue Jays and you want a guy like this, I mean, he's going to cost you a little bit. Is it going to be a ton? Probably not in today's age. So, and again, I get back to this. Canada's going to cost you a little bit more money, and talent costs you money. Mm-hmm. Facts.
Yeah, that's just
facts.
The way it is.
Russell Martin costs you a year more.
Yeah.
And he's Canadian.
He's from here. Yeah, that's true.
Canadian.
Mike Trout, not Canadian. But again, like on pace at one point to be the greatest right-handed hitter of all time. Man, 3 MVPs, 4 runner-up finishes. He used to be able to steal a base, play defense in center field. It might all be over for him. He's still got a million years at $1 quadrillion left on that deal. I mentioned that baseball, there's nothing guaranteed. There's no sure thing. Juan Soto feels as close to it. Mike Trout, in his heyday, felt like it. You could pencil him in for whatever, 40 home runs, OPS of 1,000.
Oh.
And all of a sudden, the last couple of years of his career. Yep. And Jason's right. Jayson Stark, we were talking to about him earlier, that pretty close to the top of the Wikipedia entry has to be, if he doesn't have another healthy MVP-like season, what he's gone through the last couple of years,
I don't know how you
keep close to the top.
How do you keep him healthy too, right? All the injuries are different ways, right? He got hit by a pitch. He was sliding into second. Mm-hmm. He was hitting one time. He was running around first, I think. Like, it's like a plethora of all kinds of different ways of you getting hurt. So I know what I'd do. I'd write his name in a lineup, go out there and get him for 65 games. Yeah, and then he got hot, I'd trade him.
Yeah, I mean,
I'd go up to him and say, I want you to get hot and healthy. I want you to be the best player in baseball, and we're trading you. I'm going to do you a favor and get you out of here.
He has 10 and 7 runs. So
he does.
He can decline to be traded.
He'd be crazy to, if they were trying to name a team, trade him to, I don't know, the Brewers. I mean, he seems to like to be in a quiet spot where nobody's paying attention. I'm just threw that name out there.
Philly, like a return home to Philly.
I don't think he's that guy that can take that and the booing and the. I mean, Jayson Stark had to get all rising for Turner because everybody was booing him. Let's feel sorry for the $330 million guy. Like, can he handle that? I don't know.
I mean, it's Bryce Harper's team, though. But, yeah, I don't know. I think you have to attach something to that contract all of a sudden to get rid of it. And we're talking about one of the greatest players in the history of the sport. All right, it's a shame. Won't see him in the lineup, though, for the Angels. Blue Jays have 7 against the Angels in quick succession here in August. Starts tonight. Bowden Francis on the hill for the Blue Jays against the righty Davis Daniel. This has been Blair and Barker. Ben Ennis in for Jeff Blair. Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet.